Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries and brokers from across the country, and joining me on this segment is Richard Waxman. He's with M&A Business Advisors. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Richard, tell us a little bit about your work and tell us specifically who are the types of clients that you specialize in working with and helping.
I really have a couple of areas in which I work, and two areas for an approach to helping people. I work primarily with sellers. We are what we call a seller retained engagement agreement or representation agreement. And these are folks typically that have either founded a business or purchased a business and run it for 2-3 decades, sometimes even longer than that, and are ready to retire, ready to take the next step in their life. And they know a lot about their business. They know very little about really the fundamentals of what needs to be done to effectively value, finance, market, and ultimately negotiate a sale of the business. So I work on either a retainer with an equity or let's call it a commission kicker at the end for success. I sometimes take on 100% commission, and sometimes people prefer to hire me strictly on an hourly basis. So that's one segment of my business. The other is from time to time, good folks are looking to purchase a business, and they've had good experience in business, MBAs, management experience, but they have no idea really what's the most constructive way to go about finding a business and then ultimately securing it as their own. So I get hired to be a buyer representative, and as part of that, I do something called a search acquisition, where we attempt to find businesses that aren't currently on the market, but could be on the market because a motivated buyer is out there. All the owner needs to do is be approached. So, and again, I work on the same principles, occasionally straight commission, more often a combination of commission and hourly consultation, or strictly an hourly. So that's what I do. I also, big part of that is helping people value their businesses so they can make a judgment about what would be an appropriate asking price for their companies.
So one of the inspirations for this series is the lack of information and people not knowing where to start. So speaking of those sellers, they've been growing their business, thinking growth, growth, growth all the time, and they're not quite sure where to start when it comes to selling. What's the most important things that are on their minds with what little that they know? Are there any common myths or misconceptions that float around out there that you can dispel?
Well, I won't call it a myth, but it is a common phenomenon with sellers that their business may be is likely to bring a higher price in the market than in fact the real market is willing to pay, and that's pretty natural. There's some degree of misinformation out there about how businesses are priced. I talk with rather sophisticated people from time to time that believe that businesses are priced on the basis of just gross sales, and with very few exceptions, that's not the case. It's a measure of profitability and so-called free cash flow, and then each industry has a certain comparable multiple times that number, and that's typically how you value a business. So I'd say one common phenomenon with sellers is that they have an impression that their business is priced, should be priced much higher than it ultimately is. So that's why we do a valuation report, and we provide 25 or so comparable sales. We do a discounted cash flow analysis. We do an asset valuation, and then we do a blended average with a heavier weight on comparable sales. And so we try to educate sellers that way. And I'd say the other common phenomenon in dealing with sellers is they have a preconceived notion as to who the ideal buyer for the business is. And that's, fairly common. And there's nothing wrong with having that. It's just that it's important to open the marketing to as many possible buyer sources as possible, because you never know who might really be the best buyer. And that's why we do market discreetly, of course, businesses. So it's kind of a come one, come all if they're qualified.
We're coming out of a pandemic now, which has got a lot of business owners thinking, is it time to sell our business now? But they're also thinking, is this a good time to sell? What's the opportunity like? How's it been in your market? Is it actually a good time to sell a business at this time?
Yeah, 2021 was a good year. 2022 has continued to be still strong. There's a lot of external factors involved now. Interest rates are going up, and as a country, we had negative GDP in the first quarter. But I'd say it's still an excellent time to sell, because historically, although interest rates are up, they're still relatively lower than they have been historically. So people can still borrow money either through their corporate lines of credit, or if they're individual buyers, there are purchase money finance programs out there through banks. So I think people have to decide not just their timing from a market point of view, but they also have to decide from a personal point of view. Is this the right time to sell? Do they have a plan post closing for what they're going to do with the next steps in their lives? So if it's the right time on a personal basis, we can help them out.
Great insight. Richard, what inspired you to get into this field and help business owners sell their businesses and help buyers find businesses? How did you get started?
Well, I came out of a commercial real estate background. Started many years ago in industrial sales and leasing, and that morphed into general commercial sales and leasing. And I happened to get a listing on a business that was a successful morning and lunch restaurant, and it had two apartments upstairs, a so-called multi-use property. And we had to find a buyer who not only would have the money to purchase the real estate, but also had the background and experience to be able to run the restaurant. And so it was two separate transactions, because real property is real property, and businesses are personal property. So it's a different set of legalistics. In any case, we found that buyer, and that led me to beginning to sell other restaurants independent of the property in most cases. And that led to me selling businesses in general. Since the late 90s, I've been at it ever since.
Richard, before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is important to share with either business owners considering selling in today's market or folks looking to buy a business? What could you share?
How much time do you have? No, I think it's important to have a quality relationship with a qualified business intermediary. And that means there's got to be trust, there's got to be respect, and even, a modicum of affection, if you will. It's important that the intermediary not only have really good knowledge, which is very critical, but his or her communication skills really are vital to the whole process, as well as his or her ability to work effectively with other advisors to the seller or the buyer, including their business attorney and their forensic CPA or their CPA if they're the seller. So I'd say make sure you feel you have a really solid relationship with that party, and it isn't always someone who's willing to work the least expensively. Dollars that you save there may be costly dollars that you'll have to pay back later on.
Right on. Richard, for business owners listening who are considering selling their businesses and would like your help, and for folks looking for a business to buy that could use their help, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, I think if you Google Richard Waxman, RICHARDWAXMAN, business intermediary, business broker, my name will come up. At least according to Google Ads, my name will come up. So that's one way. I'm happy to give you a direct line. It's 415-515-3487, 415-515-3487, or rwaxman at MA business spelled out advisors, ADVISORS.com, rwaxman at mabusinessadvisors.com.
Richard, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, and I wish you similar success.
That was Richard Waxman with M&A Business Advisors, and this segment's brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.